Blog Talk Radio.
Good evening. This is American First Patriot Podcast. We defend freedom and liberty. I'm your host, CHAUNCEY Brown. My co-host, veteran, patriot, Jarrod Tomassi is in the studio. We're honored and proud and blessed to be here today. We have a guest caller that's in queue. Nathan's from Florida. He's given us a great deal of insight on the Constitution. We're going to let Nathan speak in the beginning of the show, and we're thankful that he's here today. He has to go to work, so we're very thankful that he's taking time out of his schedule to come on and help the American people by talking about the Constitution, freedom and liberties that a lot of people take for granted, but we hold so dear and that we're fighting for every day. Let me bring Nathan into the studio without any further ado. How are you today, Nathan? Nathan, are you in the studio? Okay, Jarrod, I guess Nathan is not in the studio yet. So how are you doing today, Jarrod?
Good, buddy. Can you hear me?
I can hear you loud and clear, like we're sitting next to each other.
What's up, dude? It feels like forever, man.
Yeah, like I spoke to you about earlier, I'm really getting annoyed of this America push for Ukraine when Ukraine is one of the most corrupt governments in the world. Americans should be focusing on our borders, our homeland, our homeless veterans, our drug crisis, our inflation, our high taxes. Don't get me wrong, I pray full of Ukraine, I pray for the people of Russia, and I pray for the soldiers that are on the battlefield. I do not pray for governments, not corrupt governments, okay? Ukraine has been corrupt. All we have to do is look at Joe Biden flexing his vice president muscles to fire a prosecutor that was investigating Burisma. So that is just the tip of the iceberg. And as we go along, we're going to uncover a lot more of this story as we continue. Go ahead. You want to chip in, Jarrod?
Yeah, I mean, what some dirty, dark secrets over there, I'm sure. But
absolutely.
Look, this is a sensitive subject, and we get it. We get it. So this isn't not having empathy, okay? This is about being
politics.
Eyes wide open. Yes.
It's about politics and corruption and deception.
Yes, it's not making emotional decisions based off the same media you didn't trust a week ago. So as you navigate through this war, through this horrible situation, stay focused, have discernment, right? Be careful
Amen.
Of the team you join, because war is played by the cake eaters, right? And this, what gets me, what actually kind of breaks my heart about all this is that all it takes is for the media to jump on something to portray a good and bad. But no one was waving flags for the genocide in Congo, just in the last 5 years. No one, thousands of people, no one was waving flags for them, or the Afghanistan women, or the Afghanistan civilians that we were attacking. No one was waving flags for them, or the Uyghur province, or in China. No one's waving flags for them. Just be very careful, folks, about what's marketed to you, because there's, this is very, very sad. A lot of people are out there are being persecuted all the time. And so just please navigate it wisely. Don't just jump on board for a nation. Jump on board for the people, like on both sides, right? The families of the soldiers who were put in positions to point guns at one another. You know what I mean? The Russian soldiers weren't sitting over in Russia going, man, we haven't attacked Ukraine in a long time. Like, I'm going to call Putin and, get this started. We're bored. That's the last thing they wanted to do. The last thing they wanted to do.
Jarrod, people...
So, just be careful.
Exactly. People should understand that war is not about people. War is about politics and money and power. And yes, we are sensitive to the plight of the average person, to the soldiers who are not engaged in this political conundrum. But to see our president, or I should say the United States of America president, because I don't acknowledge him as my president's still Donald Trump, to see him go to try to aid Ukraine faster than he goes to aid homeless veterans, faster than to secure the border, faster than standing up for abortion, against abortion. And then to top it off, let's put the icing on the cake. Let's nominate to the Supreme Court a black woman. How immoral, racist, discriminatory is that? You are disenfranchised and discriminated against all men and all women of non-color. That's a violation of the Civil Rights Act. This president is a complete disaster on every front. Home, foreign, it doesn't matter. Build back better? How about build back broker? Because everything he touches turns to shit. Everything. Go ahead, Jarrod.
You're fired up. Hey, dude. Man, how many of us are feeling this way? It's so sad. We're not supposed to feel this way. This is not normal, folks. A buddy of mine, Steve, is on the line, just so you know. He's a retired police chief out of California, and he's running for sheriff in Arkansas. Man, this guy has a history of just straight patriotism. And if anybody can help us with a little bit of the navigation of the Constitution, this guy can. So we should have him join us. But before that, none of this is adding up, Spud. None of this is adding up.
Listen, Jarrod, it didn't add up from the beginning of the campaign that Biden came out of his basement with 20 people with chairs saying, "I'm running for president."
Yeah, I mean, it is insanity. If you had, let's just make it simple. So this guy is supposed to be running a nation, and let's just say the nation is like a home, right? This guy is bumping into the walls in his own house. His kids are cracked out. He's got holes in the roof. The bathroom's flooding. The dogs are on the loose. The rest of the kids, he don't know where they're at. He's inviting 1,000 people in through the window. He doesn't have any food to feed them. He's getting oil from another place that he's at war with. Everybody in the house is wearing masks except him. He doesn't know how to, get through a sentence without drooling on himself. I mean, the dude needs to slow down, and maybe
he needs
start
a bib
patching
too.
things up.
And he needs a bib.
Oh man, gosh, poor guy. Poor guy. Please let the guy retire. Who's ever got their hand up is let him retire. Jeez. But Steve's on the line, Bubba.
Okay, let's bring Steve in. How you doing, Steve? I'm Chauncey. Welcome to
Good,
American
sir. How
First
are you?
Patriot Podcast. I'm blessed, and I'm even more excited to be on the phone with another Patriot on the front lines fighting with Jarrod and I.
Well, that is the places that I like to be, is with fellow Patriots. Although most of my battles take place fighting those who oppose the Constitution. So,
of course,
and that are looking for power and money. So it's always nice to take a break from all that and be with people who are like-minded
and like-spirited.
Can you share your
we all
story
fear God
with us? Just a little bit of your story, Steve, and then where you're at right now.
Okay. Well, a number of years ago, I was appointed by congressional mandate. I was a chief of police at that time, and I was appointed by congressional mandate because I had a reputation for being probably one of the best investigators in the country, and so I was appointed by congressional mandate to go into Los Alamos and clean up the corruption and espionage. Once I got there, I saw what a mess it was. I saw the secrets that were leaving. We called it leaving the hill because Los Alamos is up on top of the hill. And we saw millions upon millions of taxpayer dollars being wasted. So once I jumped into my investigation, I immediately started getting information and evidence against what I would call the lower level individuals. And as I started to go through the system, I started climbing up the ladder and finding that the higher ups were just as much involved as the lower level employees. Well, I was told to cease and desist, to take the money, to shut my mouth, and I would be just fine. Well, that's not the way I operate. I took an oath to defend the Constitution.
Amen.
I took an oath and made a promise to the people of the United States that I would do my job regardless, and I did. So for my trouble, I was terminated. They threatened to kill me. They did bankrupt me eventually. I ended up losing everything, but in the end, I won. I was declared a national hero by members of Congress. I was reinstated, but instead of just being reinstated as the head of the criminal investigation unit at Los Alamos, I was put in charge as director of public safety over all the laboratories under the University of California's control, and was able to continue my work for about another 2 years. It eventually got to the point when you're fighting a battle like that and you're the Lone Ranger, it just got to the point where I had to leave. I couldn't work 24/7 with no support and continue the fight. So I did the best that I could. I got all the policies and procedures changed that I could. It was brought into the public eye so that the United States citizens knew what was going on there and could keep an eye on it. I was brought back on multiple occasions to do additional investigations, and they all turned out that the parties I was investigating were found guilty of the activities that they were involved in. But I'll tell you, when people think that when you fight the federal government, when you fight government corruption, when you fight the overreaching of the government, that you make all kinds of money in your pocket because you're on the news every night and you're Mr. Popular and everybody loves you. The opposite is true. Typically, when you take your oath seriously and you fight for the people of the United States, you lose absolutely everything. I had to put my children in hiding. I ended up getting divorced. I lost everything. I lost everything. I had nothing left, nothing, because they constantly go after you with these frivolous lawsuits. You have to defend yourself. You have to put the money up. You have to hire attorneys. So for about 10 years, I was constantly contacted about, we got a lawsuit here. You got to hire an attorney. And not only that, it wears on you. So, physically, mentally, you're just exhausted. and nobody's coming to your rescue. And I'm not, I don't want to say anything bad about the pillow guy or whatever, but like if you have a name for yourself and you have money, those are the people that get the assistance, not the Lone Ranger guy that's out there actually doing the work, right? So, the pillow guy, he has some problems with the government. And I'm not saying he's not doing a good job, and I'm not saying that he's not doing something that's important. But, he loses a few bucks. He's not homeless. He's still got millions of dollars. People are running, throwing money at him because he lost different accounts where he was making money. You have the rank-and-file individual who's out there on the front lines, risking their life, risking everything that they have, and nobody cares because you don't have a name. And, and it's really a sad state of affairs. And I see that over and over and over again. We see all these rhinos that are leaving the Democratic Party to run as Republicans because it's the only way they can get elected. The Republican Party, you go to them, you say, hey, this guy last week was a Democrat. Now he's running as a Republican. What's up with that? Well, if they say that they've changed parties and they've changed their philosophies, we have to let them in and there's nothing we can do about it. Well, that's baloney, right? Because they know what he's going to do. He's got all this Democratic money behind him. He's going to get elected. And then he is going to vote with the Democrats. But see, it's all the money game because they know that if that guy comes in, he's going to bring X amount of dollars with them. They're going to cut all these backdoor deals, up in the Capitol. And so it's business as usual. And let me tell you something. The Republicans are just as corrupt as the Democrats, and I saw it testifying before congressional committees where in the morning, you're a hero. You're the best thing that ever happened to this country. Thank you for your service. Thank you for everything you've done. We've looked at your record. You've done more in 6 months than the other investigators have done in 60 years. Thank you so much. And they cut a deal at lunchtime. In the afternoon, you're Satan incarnate. So don't kid yourself. The Republican Party, and I'm not anti-Republican Party. I'm a Republican. I'm running as a conservative Republican. But just because you have Republican behind your name does not make you a Republican. You need to look at how those people vote. You need to look at where they were prior to joining the Republican Party. You need to look at everything that they're doing in the office that they hold. Don't just flip the switch because, they've got Republican behind their name. You have to make sure that their goal is to limit the power of the government and protect the rights of the citizen. So if they're voting to increase the power of the government and reduce the rights of the citizen, they're not your candidate.
Amen.
So,
thank you so much.
That's pretty straightforward right there.
What's that?
Pretty much.
That's pretty straightforward.
I mean, that's the way it is. I mean, it's like, I've been tested by fire time and time again, right? So the only thing that the Republican Party cares about now, we have to be fair, even though the other two candidates recently just joined the Republican Party. And prior to that, they were, I'm not going to say they were, I can't say they were Democrats. I believe the one guy was an independent, but their whole careers, they backed and worked for Democrats, So their take on things is a Democratic philosophy. So the first debate that we had, they said if an unconstitutional law is passed where your gun rights or where the federal government wants to take your Second Amendment rights away, what would you do? Well, their answer was, we don't pick and choose the laws we enforce, and if the federal government passes a law, we're going to enforce it. So my response was, it goes against the Constitution, it's an illegal law, and it's not enforceable. And I also told them that, the other statement I made is that mandates and orders are not laws. As a sheriff, as a policeman, as a federal agent, whatever, I don't have to enforce any of that stuff because it's not a law. And I'm not hired to enforce policies and procedures. And basically that's what they're trying to get you to enforce. So I won't do it. And nor would I ever do it because, again, a mandate and an order is not a law, and it is unenforceable. What makes it enforceable is when you have a corrupt official, like a mayor or a sheriff, who decides that he's going to enforce those mandates and orders. They don't have to. They can go, look, kiss my ass. I'm not doing it. And I can't tell you how many times I've done that.
You raised a very...
approached.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, I was going to say I can't tell you how many times I've been approached by the federal government as a police officer, and they say, we would like you to do this, whatever it is, doesn't matter. We would like you to do this. And I'm like, based on what? Well, we're trying to get statistics, or we're trying to get this, or we're trying to get that. Okay, well, what's the purpose? Well, we really don't have a purpose. We're just trying to get statistics. Everybody else is doing it. We'd like you to do it as well. And I'm like, get out of my office and, kiss my ass and get out of my office. You're wasting my time. It's not constitutional. I'm not going to do it. I could give a crap about your statistics. I don't believe you. You're trying to establish a list of people and locations that you can go after at a later date. You're gathering intelligence in an illegal manner and trying to call it statistics. So get the hell out of here. And, of course, they don't like that. So there's always retribution for that as well, or at least attempted.
So you're running for sheriff, right, Steve?
Yes.
You're the hero, man. You're going to save that county. What county are you in, and these folks got to vote for you?
Well, you say that, but again, apathy is what kills our government, right? So, technically, I'm the outsider, right? I wasn't born here, wasn't raised here, haven't lived here, my whole life. So you're going to get people who are apathetic. They're going to vote for. I would like to think, and I believe that I will win this election, okay? I truly believe that. But that doesn't mean that a large percentage of this population, it's going to be a close race, will vote for those other two guys because they know them, because they've lived here. They don't care that they've never done anything. They don't care that everything they've touched is turned to trash. They don't care about it. It's like, oh, well, I know him. I've had coffee with him 2 or 3 times, so I'm going to vote. And that's one of the problems with the public. It's like you hear someone's name. I'm going to tell you a story about how this female judge got elected. She's a total lib. We had a judge in a particular area that I was working in, and his name was O'Brien. And the only reason I'm not giving you all the details is because I don't want to get sued. I don't have the money to support it anymore, but it's a true story. So his name was O'Brien, and he was a great judge, and he was in office for a number of years. He decided he was going to retire. So a female who was not of his caliber, who was very liberal, literally legally changed her last name to O'Brien because people don't do their research. So when she got on the ballot for judge, everybody was used to voting for the previous conservative Judge O'Brien. So all they saw was the name O'Brien running on the Republican ticket and flipped the lever. And she got in and stayed in. And as far as I know, she's still there. So that's what I'm saying. Apathy actually destroys our Constitution. It destroys our rights, and it keeps us from the protections that we are awarded under the Constitution, because we're putting people in office who could care less about you, who could care less about your rights. They're constantly trying to overreach their authority, and you put them there. I don't mean you guys personally, but, the U.S. citizens put them there, and then you start crying. Oh, this is happening, that is happening. Or you ask people, you say, what'd you vote for that guy for? He's anti-gun. He says he wants to take, I'm not a one-issue voter. I have to look at the big picture. It's like, dude, right. The big picture is he's going to come in. That's the first thing he's going to take, and then he's going to take everything else from you, and he's going to take every penny that he can squeeze out of you. So, this one issue voter stuff is a bunch of baloney. It's like you got to look, anytime somebody wants to remove one of your constitutional rights, they should automatically be out. Instantaneously, you don't want that guy. And people don't look at it that way because, we live in a world, and again, I'm generalizing. I'm not saying everybody's this way. Obviously, I'm not this way. You guys aren't that way. There's a lot of people probably listening to this show that aren't that way. But, people want immediate gratification, right? They want something for nothing. They have an over-exaggerated sense of entitlement.
Excuse me.
And so they want the candidate that promises he's going to give them something, right? Oh, if I get into office, we're gonna give you more money. We're going to make sure that you make more money per hour. We're going to give you extra food stamps, whatever it is. And so that's what they want, something for nothing. And then when you look again at the big picture, and they talk about, the crimes that are committed with firearms, and then they show you, all of these atrocities that were committed with firearms. They're always committed in the most restrictive states and cities in the country. They're not committed in the average neighborhood. It's always the most restrictive areas that have the most criminal activity committed with firearms. And additionally, the reason that happens is, and I hate to sound like an NRA commercial, but it's because in those areas only criminals have guns. So when you take guns away from law-abiding citizens, that's what you get. All you got to do is look at Chicago, look at New York, look at Los Angeles. If you want to look, a picture of how this country is going to look unless people get off their butts and start fighting back, and I don't mean, taking arms and attacking the government, but literally going out there, attending when these candidates show up, attending these meetings, throwing their record in their face, getting people to vote for the Constitutionalists. Until that kind of thing starts happening across this country, we're screwed.
Amen. Steve, real quickly, I have Nathan, who's a caller who wanted to come in and talk about the Constitution. Before I break,
okay.
Steve, what is your last name, and also what is the office that you're running for, state and county?
My last name is Doran, Doran. I'm running for sheriff in Izard County, Arkansas.
Awesome. Can you please stand by? We're going to let Nathan chip in, and we'll get back to you in a second if that's okay with you, Steve.
Fine.
Nathan, you're on the air.
Chauncey.
How are you?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Listen, I'm not able to be on tonight because I have to work. I drive a gas tanker and people are panicking. But I got a list of about 5 different things to throw out at you to get you thinking. And then next week I'll be there if you guys want to follow this. But first, in the preamble, it says, "We the people of the United States," not "we the politicians of the federal government or various states," or "we the politicians of the two-party system." It says, "We the people." And I believe the founders were when they did this and they sacrificed, they were we the people. But yet at the same time, they had a broad peasant class that lived off the land, and they were educated and came from wealth. And they did sacrifice greatly for it. And if I ever meet them, I would bow and kiss their foot and thank them for the freedom I've had. But I just want to point out that we the people in the preamble, and then in Article 1, Section 1, that mentions the people vote for the Congress, and mentions the qualifications that the Congress is supposed to make for the electors. In the 14.2, Section 2, the second sentence, when the white men got the first right to vote on paper, it mentions they vote for the electors of the president and vice president and the president, and down the list, Congress and Senate. And then later on, in the 12th Amendment, it mentions the president and the vice president are 2 distinct, separate elections, And if you remember back in the last, in the 2020, Mike Pence was like the big thing that everything hinged on. But if you read the 12th, it is the Congress that settles the presidential race, and it's the Senate that settles the vice president race. And if we would have lived by the 12th, we could have had a Trump-Harris or a Biden-Pence presidency, because the vice president isn't the one that he's anyway. Please read that. And then in the 24th, there's a lot in the 24th. I'll be done with this. In the 24th, it says the right of citizens to vote in any primary. That means primaries, open primaries is the law of the land. And then it says for president, it says the right of citizens to vote in any primary or other election for president, vice president, electors of president and vice president, Congress and Senate. And then but here's what it says, and there's a lot in this. In the 24th, it says the right of citizens to vote in any primary shall not be denied or abridged. Denied means complete denial rights of your rights. Abridged means partial rights, but shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or any other state for a poll tax, meaning you don't have to pay money to vote, or any other tax, which means like you got to be a member of either one of the two major parties, or you got to have teeth, hair, and a job in order to vote. None of that. There is no conditions to you being able to vote. And on the Electoral College, if you go to a site called ballotpedia.org and type in Electoral College, and you can name your state because all the states are on there. And you can see who the Electoral College members are, and they're basically either politicians or really active people in their party that gets appointed by their states to politicians. And that's why I'm saying the system we have does not match anything that is written in the Constitution. I'm going to listen to your show tonight, and next Monday I'll be there listening again if you guys want to get into this, okay?
Nathan, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to come on the show and talk to the American people. Have a safe night tonight. God bless you and your family, and we look forward to having you on next Monday. Take care.
God bless you, brother.
Sir. Yes, thank you, sir. Bye-bye.
Good stuff, man.
Okay.
Good stuff.
It's awesome stuff. Since we got Steve back on, Steve, I'll let you. We have about 20 more minutes left in the show. For those that are listening, this is American First Patriot Podcast. I'm joined with my co-host, veteran and patriot, Jarrod Tomassi. I'm your host, Chauncey Brown. And we have in the studio Steve, who's a candidate for sheriff, who is talking to us about our liberties and freedoms and how our rights have been denied by the government throughout our country. Steve, thank you so much. You've been giving us a ton of information. I really appreciate what you shared, and I look forward to you sharing more until we close out the segment of the show. And also, I have another podcast called The CHAUNCEY Show, where I only interview candidates that are running for office across the country. And I would love to have you on. I will connect with Jarrod to get your information so I can set up a date and have you on The CHAUNCEY Show as well, okay?
That'd be great.
Awesome.
Well,
when is your election? When is your election before I forget?
Well, actually, I have to win the primary, which is in May. So,
okay.
Once I win the primary, nobody else is running. So when you win the primary, you basically win the race.
Okay. The reason why I asked you, and I apologize that I interrupted you, I'm booked up until the beginning of May for the CHAUNCEY Show. So what we'll do is we're going to have you back on American First Patriot Podcast just as a candidate, talking about your county and the issues that you're facing and the policies that you want to debunk or the policies that you want to institute when you become a sheriff. So I'll work that out with Jarrod, and we'll have you on this show within the next several weeks. Because that's why I asked you the date, because I'm already booked up until the whole first week of May. So we'll have you back on in a couple of weeks on American First Podcast, and we will we will, bill it out, to the public that you're going to be on. So we will work on that. And thank you, for your courage, for standing up against the government. I, too, was a former fire captain, government employee. And, yeah, I understand how the government works. And I'm glad that you mentioned mandates are not laws. And chief executives of any state or municipality only has the power over their employees. They don't have the power over the citizenry. And see, that's what people get all flustered. And in addition, we live in a free society. Nobody can make me wear a mask. Nobody can make me take a jab. I live in a free society. It is my choice what I want to do with my body, not the government. Go ahead, Steve.
Well, like I said, the whole point of the Constitution is to limit the power of the government, not increase it, to limit it, right? And you have a right to pursue, as long as you're not hurting anybody else, you have a right to pursue your own happiness. It doesn't matter what anybody else thinks, or that they're using the consensus process to make you seem like an evil human being because you're not for socialism or whatever agenda they happen to be pushing this week or next week. You have a right to do what makes you happy. Doesn't matter what anybody else thinks. Doesn't matter what the government thinks. And then the government also has the responsibility to, and again, you're protected from government abuse. So this, you didn't take the jab, so you're killing everyone, across the country. You're supposed to be protected from those types of statements and those types of accusations. And, that's, what our Constitution is based on. The government is supposed to be protecting our borders. They're not doing it, right? So you've got sheriffs, you've got local police departments on the borders doing what the federal government is supposed to be doing. So then, we send people over to the Ukraine, or we have them on standby to go in and defend the Ukraine. And one of the things that people aren't aware of is when the president of the Ukraine decided that he was going to pass out military weapons to every citizen in the country to help to defend the country, guess who the first in line were? Organized crime. Organized crime got a hold of you think I'm kidding? This is a fact.
No.
Organized crime got a hold of all the military weapons, all of the ammunition they could carry, all of the the small arms that were available. Now, do you think they went to fight the Russians? No, they went to fight the rival organized crime gangs. So now what they're doing is you've got all these firefights that are happening in the Ukraine. It's not between Ukrainians and the Russians. It's between rival gang members, and they're trying to establish their hierarchy in the country. So now you've got this criminal element that has years and years and years worth of guns and ammunition, that once this is over, how does the government think they're going to get all that stuff back?
They're going to ask nicely because everybody plays nice, buddy.
Right. Well, how they're going to get it back? One bullet at a time.
Yeah,
fired from the rifle or the handgun that they gave those people.
I was literally just.
But again, there was no vetting. There was no nothing. It was just like, come and get it. So now you've got a problem within inside of a problem, and of course, the Ukraine has historically been corrupt on a number of different levels. So why do I want? And see, this is the thing: the people that always suffer, are the women, the children, and the elderly.
Amen.
They're the ones who always suffer through war. Now, I feel
and veterans
horrible.
And veterans.
Right, but I feel horrible for the people of Ukraine. Right, I do.
Mm-hmm.
I feel horrible for the people who cannot defend themselves. There's right now, women are being raped, children are being raped. People who can't, young men who can't defend themselves are being sodomized. It's a horror story in a large part of the country. not being inflicted by Russia, but by Ukrainians. So,
exactly.
The news isn't going to tell you that, right? So I feel horrible for those people. But I also, my first concern is this country. My first concern are our borders here in this country. My first concern are the elderly in this country. My first concern are the children and the women and the shut-ins and the people who can't defend themselves in this country. Once we get this squared away, maybe we can go out and help other people. But right now, we are an absolute disaster. We're on the verge of bankruptcy. We're putting small businesses out of business. We're making these multinational corporations richer, and we're denying our citizens their constitutional rights. This needs to be fixed first. So all these people on Facebook and stuff who have the little Ukrainian flag, I'm with you, the Ukraine. How about changing that? I'm with the United States. I want the United States fixed now.
Exactly, Steve. I don't mean to interject.
I'm with the United. I'm a citizen. I'm a patriot.
Steve.
And I feel bad for the Ukraine.
Yeah, and so do I. I feel bad for the people. I feel bad for the soldiers. I don't feel bad for the government. The problem that we're having, and we're talking about, because even in America, people don't understand their rights and freedoms under the Constitution. When you take that out of our public school system, you have people like AOC who have no clue about government running for Congress. When our public school system has abandoned statesmanship, civil responsibility, American history, that's how they're undermining the Constitution, because we're not learning that in our educational system. So we have a whole bunch of sheep that the government says go this direction, they go, because they have not been educated on the United States Constitution and the role it plays to protect the people. Again, Steve.
Well, let me hop in here. That irritates me to no end is, first of all, the government is not the politicians in Washington. We are the government, right?
Thank you.
It's our country. It's our land. Nothing ticks me off more when people go, oh, that's government land. No, it isn't. It's mine. It's yours. If you're a U.S. citizen and you pay taxes, that is your land. That is not government. There is no government. You are the government. There are politicians in Washington, D.C., and we elect them to vote and represent us in D.C., represent our values. And if they're not doing it, then they need to be replaced and removed. They're not our bosses. We're their boss. So when I see these politicians get on television, appear in person, and they try to lord over the people in their district, I just want to bomb it. I'm like, look, jackass, you work for us. We don't work for you, and how dare you act like you're in charge of your district. They are in charge of you. You work for them. And so I get so sick and tired, and even as a chief of police, as an elected sheriff, my job is to work for the people in my jurisdiction, to protect their constitutional rights, to stop the government from overreaching and affecting them in any negative way. It's like the first line of defense. So I'm sickened when I see 30 New York policemen go into a restaurant and harass a family of 3 for not wearing an effing mask. To me, if I was chief of police, I might get fired by the mayor. I'd fire every damn one of them. And I'd say, you will not ever, the kid is bawling. People are scared to death. It's like the Nazis going in, the brown shirts going in to take beat everybody up who isn't supporting Hitler. And that's the way it comes off. So if you're a police officer and you think it's okay to violate somebody's constitutional rights or terrorize a small child because he's not wearing a mask, you're in the wrong occupation. You need to be terminated, and you need to be, you should never be allowed to wear a badge or carry a gun or have anything to do with enforcing the law.
Hey, Steve.
I'd get fired before I'd do something like that.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, Jarrod, go ahead. There's a delay. Here we go, Giggles. I'm going to start calling you Giggles, Jarrod.
I was just going to say, man, once you get elected, Steve, I think I'm going to move my family to your county. And then we'll fund a little border wall around Izzard, and then we'll just do our own thing. You know what I mean? We'll just start getting the farmers out there. Actually, just the truckers. We'll do a trucker wall, and then we'll just hang out, raise cattle, and start over.
Well, see, the nice thing about rural communities is, for the most part, I mean, you've got people everywhere who are going to disagree with you, but for the most part, the people here are very patriotic. For the most part, people are very self-sufficient. They are pursuing their happiness, and again, it's the government who is disrupting their way of life. I mean, you've got Biden, 90% of the county here is agriculture. So you've got Biden who wants to tax the crap out of the ranchers and farmers to pay for some of his projects. And if he does that, obviously what's it going to do? It's going to drive them out of business. They're going to lose their land because they won't be able to afford the taxes. And then what do we lose as a country? We lose food. We lose the ability to raise our own food supply, and we have to go to foreign countries to get it. So they're trying to destroy the country from within, and they're trying to do it, by just basically like the King of England did, right? Taxation without representation. Oh, I've got this project. The ranchers don't pay enough money, so let's quadruple their taxes. We need $1 trillion in the next X amount of years. So we're just going to, we're going to tax everything they do and take all their money away from them to shut them down. And then we'll have to, what we'll have to do is go to foreign resources to get food. And then that's another way to control the U.S. population, right? So the nice thing about these rural counties is that everybody here, for the most part, right? I mean, everybody has their 10%, 5%, 3%. Everybody here is self-sufficient, right? They support themselves. They know how to grow a garden. They know how to can their own food. They know how to raise animals. They know how to, take care of themselves when times get tough. So typically what happens is that as long as you can maintain a conservative government within the confines of these types of counties, the federal government is going to be more apt to pick on cities like New York, Los Angeles, Phoenix, because it's easier to control larger populations, right? If you go to Phoenix and you want people in Phoenix to do something, you shut off their water, in about 3 days, they're all doing whatever you want them to do. You shut off their electric in the middle of summer when it's 120 degrees, in about 6 or 7 hours, they're all doing what you want them to do. You come out to an area like this, and you tell people, this is what we want you to do, they're going to look at it like, that's a challenge, right? It's like, you go ahead and try to force us to do it and watch what happens. So, these rural communities are, the backbone of our country because they're the last holdout. They don't, federal government says do this, or they're like, we're not going to do it. We want you to do this in schools, or we're going to cut off your money. Go ahead and cut off our money. We're still not going to do it. So, this is the backbone of America. This is where, and I call it not a revolution, I call it a revival. This is where the revivals need to start the little ripple in the pond becomes a wave across the country. And people need to start being efficient. They need to stop this immediate gratification mentality. They got to stop this over-exaggerated sense of entitlement. They got to put their stupid cell phones and computers away and start getting back to, the basics with their families, communicating, showing their children, the basic skills that they need to survive should times get tough. And it's, that's not what they're doing in a lot of the major cities. They lose their cell phone coverage, they're ready to riot. McDonald's closes down, oh my God, what are we going to do? People need to get away from that. They need to get back to the basics, and they need to start communicating. They need to start, meeting together as a group. Since the age of technology, everybody talks, they text, they talk on their cell phone, they do FaceTime. You need to forget all that crap and start meeting with people. Who are your neighbors? Learn who your neighbors are. Learn who the people are in your community. Go meet with like-minded people. Have face-to-face conversations. Who gives a crap that the government says you can't gather together or wear a mask? Again, it's not a law. Do what you want to do. Get out there, meet with people. And one of the things I love about living here is I do it all the time. Nobody here wears a mask. Since I've been here, nobody's ever worn a mask. Nobody's getting the shot. Nobody, they live their life. You go to a restaurant, everybody's talking to everybody else. You go to a community meeting of some sort, everybody's talking to everybody else. Nobody cares. They don't care what the government has to say. They're going to do what they want to do, and they're going to teach their children how to survive when times get tough, and they do it by example. And everybody needs to do that because, you never know. I mean, forget about COVID, forget about the government right now. None of us know when disaster is going to strike. None of us, right? Things happen all the time. Hurricanes, earthquakes, tornadoes, whatever. People need to not rely on the government when those things transpire. They need to be able to take care of themselves and their families for an extended period of time whenever these types of things transpire, and not sit there and literally, they're either waiting to die or for the government to rescue them. And I know I don't really know how old you guys are, but my grandparents, we lived in an area where there were quite a few natural disasters, tornadoes especially. And my grandparents never skipped a beat, man. It's like they always had food stored up. And again, they weren't survivalists or any kind of, members of some extreme, right-wing organization. They were just normal people, normal, kind-loving people. But disaster would strike, and it was like nobody skipped a beat. We had heat, we had food, we had water, because they were always prepared for whatever was going to come their way. We had, lots of conversations. I never remember. We watched TV very seldom. And most of our family time was spent sitting around a table, having a cup of coffee, having conversations, learning from our elders, I'll use that term loosely, and talking about what adventure we were going to go on next. And I try to maintain that in my household now and with the people that I deal with and my kids and my friends. We don't sit around on the freaking phone or on the computer or watching TV. We're planning our next adventure. What are we going to do next? How can we improve this? How can we improve that? And our nation needs to get back to that.
Amen. Unfortunately, Steve, we're out of time. Please share with our audience if you have a website up, if they want to volunteer for your campaign or donate. Please share that information with our followers and our listeners.
Okay. Now, I have a GoFundMe, and I know a lot of people have a problem with GoFundMe, but if the other website, the Give, I can't remember the exact name of it, but anyway,
Give, Send, Go. Give, Send, Go.
Give, Send, Go was hacked, and my account is locked. So they're having a lot of technical problems. So I did have to open a GoFundMe. But if you go to GoFundMe and you search Doran for Sheriff on GoFundMe, there's a page where you can donate to my campaign. If you want to know more about me, you can go to Doran, my last name, Doran, for FOR, Izard, IZARD, countysheriff.com, and there's a webpage about me. And again, just go to GoFundMe, type in Doran for Sheriff, and it'll take you to my page if you want to make a donation.
I'm donating.
Steve, thank you.
I'm having to.
1 second, Jarrod. Steve, thank you so much
you got it, buddy.
for your time. And thank you for wanting to stand up for the American people again by representing them in Arkansas. I'm sorry that we're out of time, but hopefully, you can call back in again, and I'll coordinate with Jarrod when you're going to come on to talk about Arkansas, the county you're running in, and talk about the policies and institutes that you want to put in place. But thank you so much again for your time, Stephen. We'll talk to you soon.
All right. Thank you for having me on, sir.
You're welcome, sir. Jarrod, we have about 4 minutes, so you got 2 minutes.
Oh, that was fun, man. Good time. We had a good time. I'm headed to Izard County. I'm going to go get deputized, and that's it. That's the retirement plan, brother.
Thank you so much, Jarrod, for inviting Steve on the show. This is what the American people needs to hear. And I'm thankful and blessed that you're my co-host. Like I always say, you're my brother from another mother, but we have the same father. You're a Christian. I'm Jewish. You're Jewish by blood, Christian by faith. I'm waiting for my DNA to come back to confirm I'm Jewish by blood and Jewish by faith. But in all seriousness, as long as we believe in a higher power, as long as we believe that there's a force out there greater than us and we respect that, then we should respect all human beings and all things that our God has placed in this universe for us to oversee and to be blessed by. Jarrod, do you want to say anything before I close out?
Yeah. Hey, just everybody have a great evening. This is about uniting. This is not about dividing. Patriots come in all shapes, sizes, and forms. The libertarians, the independents, the Republicans, the Democrats, those majority who never left the center. We're not alone. We're not divided. It's the progressives on the outside that are the extremists. So just remember, this is about uniting, not dividing, and we love you all.
Jarrod, thank you so much. It's an honor and a blessing that you're my co-host. And I hope and pray that we don't have to have another 9/11 for America to come together as one country. I'm a 9/11 survivor. I was at ground zero. And that's the last time that I saw patriotism in this country unwaver. And I hope that we don't have to have a situation like that in order for people to wake up. I want to thank all of our listeners for tuning into American First Patriot Podcast. Honored and blessed to have my veteran, my Jewish brother of Christian faith, Jarrod Tomassi, on the show with me. Awesome patriot, veteran, always on the ground fighting. He's even fighting when he's at work. Big construction guy, and he's always on his phone fighting for American people. And we're thankful that we have him on our show. You can follow American First Patriot Podcast. Please join us at Linktree. That's Linktree, American First Patriot Podcast. When you go to that site, you can follow us on all the conservative and, unfortunately, mainstream social media sites. We want to thank all of our listeners for tuning in. We want to thank you for support. This is a new show, and it's evolving, and I'm happy to do this with Jarrod. As we evolve and we get engaged in more things, we will have more people calling in to participate. This show is for you. It's not for us. It is for us to help raise the level of consciousness and provide information that is truthful for the American people. We're here to defend your freedom and liberty. That's the purpose of this show. And we want to thank you all again for your support. God bless you all. Have a great weekend. Remember, keep the faith. And we're here every Monday from 8 to 9 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. God bless you all. Don't forget America first. Do not listen to the news media. Be the news. Don't be a subject of the news. God bless you all. Have a good night now. Take care.